A disability is something that has a major impact on your life.
Every disability is different.
And it's never the same thing for two people. I am blind in my right eye totally and partially sighted in my left eye.
I was 18 years old. We were traveling way too fast on a gravel road. Broke my neck, my back.
My Asperger's syndrome and my cerebral palsy.
I have anxiety and depression. People would have no idea just talking to me.
Being independent means different things to different people.
I want to live in my own house. I want to pay my own bills.
Live independently and not rely on other people.
When someone is not able to live as independently as they can, it does have a detrimental effect on people's physical and mental well-being.
It's no complicated thing. It's just that people with disabilities want to be included.
Plenty of people get stuck in ruts when they feel like they can't overcome something in their life. That's where LIFTT comes in.
Living independently for today and tomorrow. LIFTT. We help people of all ages and all types of disabilities find the resources or acquire the skills to live as independently as possible.
We serve the southeastern 18 counties here at the Billings office. We have a variety of things that we offer. We can help with grant funding for adaptive equipment.
Maybe a home modification so they're able to access their home. We help people to find that funding.
Helping people apply for Social Security benefits.
Medicaid, Medicare, housing.
They have a peer support group. Peer support, I think, is key.
Sharing life experiences is one of the most powerful things to help people who might be new to disability, who might be struggling with their disability.
Youth transitions is kids that are transitioning out of high school. They need to learn those adulting skills. It might be rent an apartment, learn how to grocery shop, budgeting.
Help someone advocate for themselves in a school or an employment setting. One of our biggest strengths is providing folks with information and referral. If we can't help you, we hope to know who can.
A lot of times we'll have a potential consumer call in and they think that they just have one need, and it turns out that we end up finding 3 or 4 things we can actually do for them.
You can just come in and say, hey, I feel like I have this going on. Can you help me? And we can, which is so cool to me. I love that.
Most of us on staff at LIFTT have identified ourselves as having one or more disabilities. That is helpful in many cases.
It's easier to empathize with someone when you yourself have struggled with a disability.
This is what we specialize in. This is who we are, and this is what we do.
And it costs nothing to go to LIFTT. It's a nonprofit organization and they're there to help.
Somebody that was a consumer that was working with LIFTT was asked to do an art project. He visualized that the balloon helps to lift people up. And then it became the logo, and it's stuck.
There's been success on all kinds of levels.
It's really rewarding to have a consumer go, hey, I was able to do this by myself today.
We want people to live their best life as independent as possible.
Live as everyone else in society and live as a part of society, not apart from society.
Everybody needs help. Sometimes you just need a little more help, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
There's plenty of life to live still, and there's a way you can do it. Keep chipping away at it, little by little by little.
Knowledge is power. Let's share it, for crying out loud.
Send us an email, give us a call. We'll do our best to help.
We can definitely help figure out what your needs are and get started on that. We're one of many steps in the path to independence, and we're happy to be serving people here in the community.
Good day and welcome to Living Well in Montana. Living Well in Montana is a program of living independently for today and tomorrow. LIFTT, L-I-F-T-T, as we often style ourselves. LIFTT is what is known as a Center for Independent Living, meaning that we are a nonprofit source of resources, advocacy, programming and services for people with disabilities, for and with people with disabilities, to help them remain in their homes and communities as opposed to more institutionalized settings. For more information about LIFTT and the services and programs we provide across our 18-county service area in southeastern and south central Montana, please visit our website at www.liftt.org or give us a call at our office in Billings at 406-259-5181 or at our office in Glendive at 406-948-8500. Today on the program, we welcome back a familiar guest, David Carlson, of Executive Director of Disability Rights Montana, and we thought since 2026 is still in its beginning stages, it's February 10th today that we're taping this, and we thought we'd have David come in and talk a little bit about what's going on in the broader disability rights realm. Welcome, David.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
All right. Let's start with Disability Rights Montana. You guys have been busy. You've launched a new sort of newsletter and which
Sure.
I'll let you talk about
well, we, as a reminder to folks, we are the protection and advocacy system for Montana. So every state and territory has an independent group of advocates, attorneys, who fight for the rights of people with disabilities. And I was recently asked how to explain that to a 6-year-old. And I think we try to stop people from hurting people with disabilities. So we go into institutions like Montana State Hospital, and we monitor conditions there, advocate for people there. We have been doing that for 50 years now. As the protection and advocacy system. And this year we are really doubling down on our culture building work. I mean, you've been doing culture building work here with your TV show and your presence in the community. LIFTT is very tightly connected to the Billings and Eastern Montana community. We serve statewide. We're much smaller than LIFTT, so our ability to get out and about is more limited, but we're really making a concerted effort to focus on community building. So we have put a lot of effort into a weekly newsletter that people can sign up for, to podcasts that people can learn about information, and of course, everyone's on socials, so you can find us on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, a lot of visual spaces. And yeah, we're really trying to connect with our community. In Helena, that's where our offices are. We're also trying to convert our office space into a community center. Nowadays, you just need a laptop and you can do the work of a lawyer. You don't need a whole office around you. So we have a whole building. We can put it to better use, though, by making it more available to the community. And I know that's something LIFTT does here in Billings. You hold events, you have lunches, you have your community in your space. We want to do something similar in Helena.
Okay, that's great. Now sort of to the news of the day. For several iterations of these interviews, we have talked about a lawsuit that was originally known as Texas v. Becerra. There was some speculation that it might disappear with the new administration. It has not. It has sort of morphed and is now known as Texas v. Kennedy, and because of the change of who the Secretary of Health and Human Services is. And there are fewer plaintiffs, but Montana is still a plaintiff, correct? And the demand has changed somewhat, correct?
Yeah. It's disappointing because we thought, given the objectives of the states that were involved in the case the first time around, we thought, well, with the new Trump administration and Secretary Kennedy taking over Health and Human Services, that perhaps they would resolve any differences they had and move on. But there's a group of attorneys, Montana being a part of them.
Attorneys General.
Attorneys General, yeah, not just any old regular attorneys, but elected statewide, the top law enforcement officer of every state. 8 of them are still fighting to keep the federal government from implementing regulations around a law called Section 504. And if I can do a really quick snapshot, that law says the federal government and entities that receive federal money cannot discriminate against people with disabilities. Sounds like a good law. Actually been in effect for over 50 years. It was passed in 1973. And recently there were some updated regulations in 2004. That's what this lawsuit is about. Those regulations were even tweaked a bit after Kennedy came in to take out some things that the secretary didn't care for. But the 2 things that the states are challenging, that Montana's Attorney General wants to get rid of, are about what does it mean to discriminate against someone with a disability in where federal funds are used to serve people, to give people nursing care, to give people personal care, daily services. And what does it look like when, if there's discrimination in decisions about parents with disabilities? And the Attorney General of our state would like the ability to use federal money to segregate people with disabilities, move them out of their community homes and into institutional settings. That could be nursing homes, psychiatric hospitals, institutions for people with developmental disabilities, and does not want the federal government to say that would be discriminatory, and you need instead to make sure your community services, that you use federal money to pay for good community services. And then the other is that you not use federal money to discriminate against parents and children with disabilities when making decisions about whether or not the state will come in and remove someone's children. So of course the state does that to protect children, and if there are allegations of abuse or neglect, they'll investigate those things. This would be, is it discriminatory to just use the assumptions or stereotypes about disability? Say, well, you use a wheelchair. How could you possibly follow around a toddler all day? I'm going to take your kid away from you. That, I would say, is discrimination. The new regulations would say you can't use federal money to do that discriminatory thing. The Attorney General doesn't want the states to have to avoid discrimination in that way. They want them to be able to make whatever rules, even if those rules rely on stereotypes and not specific actions of the parent, but just generally we think parents with disabilities wouldn't be good at taking care of their children, so we'll take their children away from them preemptively. Those are the 2 things that the Attorney General wants to be able to do. Institutionalize people with disabilities and take children away from people with disabilities, even though there aren't other facts suggesting it needs to happen. Those sound like extreme ideas, not in line with disability rights, but also not in line with the way I think Montanans value family, the value community. Then why would we be tearing apart families by taking people with disabilities and putting them in institutions and taking children away from parents with disabilities? That seems outrageous.
And to go back to that first part about the institutionalization, there was again, going back to there was the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. Again, Section 504, as you said, goes back to the 1970s, and again, there was a protracted fight to get regulations promulgated for it in the late
70s.
In the late 70s, and then the ADA comes along in 1990, and then in, I want to say 1999 or 2000, Lois Curtis case winds its way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court tells the state of Georgia that, and by default the other 49 states and our handful of territories, that you must provide services in the least restricted environment. And again, generally that has been the impetus, even though officially states don't have to offer home and community-based services the same way they have to offer nursing home care under Medicaid. That the impetus for the growth and the improvement of home and community-based services in Montana and across the country has been this Olmstead decision, which again, this argument being made by the Attorney General Knudsen and his colleagues would seem to sort of fly in the face of that.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not some newfangled idea that advocates like us came up with. Is like, oh, we should try to sneak into the 504 regulations that are coming out some obligation to provide community-based services. This has been the slow, steady, regular, consistent movement over the last half a century. So, as you said, 504 was passed in 73. There was a lot of fighting. In 77, there were the nation's longest sit-ins to take over a federal building and protest. That was done by the disability community, and they insisted. There's a quote from Judy Heumann, one of the leaders of that movement and a longtime leader in the disability rights movement until she passed away recently, of we will tolerate no more discussion of segregation. They were talking about segregating people with disabilities back then. The federal government was like, well, is that really discriminatory? Is it not? And finally it decided, no, that is true. We're not going to create separate but equal settings for people with disabilities to get services. If you need services, you can get them in your own home. That was established then. And there was a real rise in disability advocacy during that time. It then moved into fair housing, because where are all these people with disabilities who used to live in institutions going to live in the community? And landlords didn't want to rent to people with disabilities. So the Federal Fair Housing Act was amended. And what about these nursing homes where people are, but they just are really crummy? And then there's the Nursing Home Reform Act that requires nursing homes look very different now than they did back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. They have to look more home-like now. They have to be looking at discharge. And the idea is you're not going to warehouse people with developmental disabilities or mental illness in psychiatric hospitals or institutions for people with developmental disabilities, and you're not going to shove them over to nursing homes either. That was explicitly written into the law. And then, as you said, the ADA was passed, and there was litigation all around that. A lot of the energy, too, there was a Supreme Court case in the mid-'80s that actually found that this city, who wanted to keep people with disabilities out and keep group homes out, passed some zoning ordinances and said that people with disabilities had to get special permission to, set up a group home in their neighborhood, and basically made it impossible for anyone with a disability who needed in-home around the care support to live in the community because of how they defined an institution. And what the Supreme Court said was that on its face is just discriminatory. It doesn't even pass. A rational person wouldn't even think that that's reasonable to try to exclude people with disabilities from your community. Now, a lot of people look at that case and it's like, oh, I wish people with disabilities could have gotten better outcomes out of that. And because they didn't get the same protection that, say, if a community said we don't want people of color to live here, or we don't want immigrants to live here, that is unconstitutional on a different grounds. But I think the real great takeaway for the disability community is it's wholly irrational in the eyes of the Supreme Court to say you don't want people with disabilities to live in your community. And so we've got 73, 77, 86, 89, 90, and then 99 with the Olmstead decision. The Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson sued a guy named Tommy Olmstead, who ran the state, their equivalent of DPHHS down in Georgia, and said, I'm living in an institution and there are other people out in the community who are getting their needs met. I should be able to live in the community too. And the Supreme Court agreed. If you are living in an institution and you don't want to, and you could get your needs met on the outside, get your needs met on the outside. To deny someone that is to discriminate against them and say, no, you as a disabled person deserve to be locked away somewhere out of sight, out of mind. That's discriminatory. Well, now, in 2026, a quarter of a century later, this well-settled debate is no longer debated. Everyone recognizes that people with disabilities belong in our communities. You know, before all of this, kids with disabilities couldn't even go to school. Schools could say, no, we don't allow them here, and that was totally legal. Landlords could say, I'm not going to rent to you because you're disabled. That was totally legal. An employer could say, I'm not going to hire you because you're disabled. That was totally legal. And our Attorney General wants to jump all the way back to before all those laws were passed and say it is legal to tell a Montanan whose needs could be met in the community, we're not going to use our federal money to pay for those community-based services. If you want to not die, you're going to go to an institutional setting. That's the place we're going to offer those services. And that is discriminatory to me, and it's been discriminatory to every lawyer who's worked in this space for the last 50 years, especially the last 25 years after the Supreme Court weighed in and said, no, we've read all these laws and we agree. This is what the law says. So it is really shocking. And it cuts right to like what LIFTT does. You're a Center for Independent Living.
Right.
And this is going the opposite direction, not independent at all, but congregated, isolated, segregated.
Right.
Those are the exact opposite of what any Montanan wants. We want to be out choosing the particular communities we live in, choosing the people we live with, the people we don't live with, and the activities we do. Do you want to ride a horse? Do you want to play video games? Do you want to go on a hike? Do you want to read a book? Those are all your choices. When you live in an institution, you don't have those choices. You do what you're told when you're told to do it. It is very much run like a jail or a prison, that this is when dinner time is, this is when you should be in your room, this is when you're allowed in the community area, this is when you're allowed to talk to people on the phone, this is when you're allowed to pick what's on the television channel, if ever. These are the types of movies you're allowed to watch. There is no internet here, don't ask. It's a very small world compared to the very big world that Montanans are used to occupying.
Okay. So again, that case is, again, the brief.
They just updated their case at the end of January, so like a week and a half ago.
Right.
And so there aren't any pending motions right now. There will likely be some at some point. The federal government will respond to this latest adjustment of the case. But what I think is really important is that the disability community of Montana knows that this is happening. That family members of people with disabilities know that this is happening. That the co-workers, the employers, the schoolmates, the teachers, the folks who work at the grocery store and you know, that you see every day, the people who work at the town pump and that you go get your soda at, that everybody in our community knows that this is going on right now. Because it's one of those things that it happens to be buried in a lawsuit in Texas, mind you, not filed here, but went down to Texas because the judges are more inclined to agree with these arguments. And know that our Attorney General went down to Texas, is arguing these things so that the state will have the ability to spend federal money, mind you. State can still do whatever it's going to do with its own money, but wants to be able to use federal money to institutionalize people with disabilities and pull them out of the communities where they can go to town pump and get what they want to eat when they want to eat it. They can get to the school and take the classes they want to take, and they can have the jobs they want to have and live with the people they want to live with. All of that goes away when you are trucked off 200 miles to Warm Springs, or 150 to Boulder, or 2 towns over to a local nursing home. It isn't always even a state-run facility. But I've never met someone who said, when I grow up, I want to live in an institution. People are thinking, when I grow up, I want to get an apartment, or I want to move to Denver, or I want to do this. It's not whatever the Attorney General has in mind for them. So if you want to keep those choices, you need to keep informed of this. And there will be opportunities to provide your comments to the Attorney General, to advocate on this. Folks like you and me will be working to try and keep all of the community updated and letting everyone know, okay, this important date is coming up. Let's make sure the Attorney General knows, because it boggles my mind that in 2026, the Attorney General could be advocating for this. So either he doesn't know or he doesn't care. We're going to figure that out by informing him well, and then he can't claim he doesn't know what the ramifications of this will be, and the only thing left will be he doesn't care. I hope that he does care. I hope that our education efforts can work, and we'll be, I mean, we're not going anywhere. We've been here 50 years. We're going to continue to advocate on this. I know LIFTT is committed to community inclusion to its core. That is not going anywhere. But what the state would like to do is to take the federal money and send it to institutions. We're going to fight against that.
Okay. Well, we just have about a minute left. You mentioned a newsletter and some podcasts. Where can people find those?
Well, you can, I think one of the easiest ways is just go straight to YouTube and put Disability Rights Montana, and our YouTube page and our podcast will come right up. The podcast name is Growth Rings. Like a tree, we lay down new growth every day, every year, and it just keeps getting bigger. And you can look backwards and see all those cool things that the disability community and disability rights movement has done over the years. But you can also look up at the limbs and say, and we're going even further. We're not done growing. So check out the Growth Rings podcast on YouTube. That's the best way to start getting engaged. There will always be links there to all of the other platforms that we're on and ways to get engaged. And that's where I try to keep people updated in visual medium, if that's what you're consuming right now. So just hop on over to YouTube if you're not already watching this there, and search Disability Rights Montana.
All right. David Carlson, thank you. This has been Living Well in Montana, a program of living independently for today and tomorrow. To keep up with LIFTT, you can visit us at LIFTT.org, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Again, my name is Jed Barton. Thank you and good day.